welcome Stuart Morris to speak today. Working together the ideas of having a conference on healing. It was Andrew Court who recommended someone from the Harry Edwards Centre, Stuart. Fortunately, Andrew's not well, so he's not been able to join us this weekend. Likes to have you, Stuart. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and speak to us.
Thank you very much.
Been very much looking forward to what you have to say. Stuart, begin by sharing a meditation. So it's us about himself. So I'm going to straight over to him.
Thank you very much. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just give everybody opportunities to sit down, and then I've got an invitation for you, which is to gently close your eyes. And simply become aware of your breath. And just notice the rise and the fall of the stomach as your breath enters and leaves the body. And then any sounds, any thoughts that come to your mind, just leave them. Just watch your thoughts. See when you no longer try to control them, they jump from yesterday and back to today and even on into the future. Become a detached observer of your thoughts. Watch them as if there were clouds drifting across the sky. You're just here to be open, to share some insights and conversation between us. Imagine the breath as it enters the heart area. And count that breath in and count it out. And let it begin to soften you. To relax your arms and your shoulders and your legs, to let go of all those things that are necessary. And then I want you to bring your awareness to the soles of your feet. And then take your awareness to your knees. And then take your awareness to your palms of your hands. And then take your awareness to the top of your head. And just with that observation, something interesting begins to happen. Because these things were there. And it was only when you put your awareness there were you consciously aware of them. But they were there in the background all of the time. And inside of you right now, there's the unseen parts of your system that make your hair grow, your nails grow. 11 systems, the circulation, the lymphatic system, the neurochemistry, the immune system. All of these systems within you we'll call the healing intelligence. And their sole purpose is to love you. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from your first breath to your last. And you have no conscious awareness of them. It's just doing what nature intended it to do. Would it be that much of a stretch to think outside of you there is another energy given 1,000 names, angels, God, universal energy, the supreme intelligence, whatever name you want to apply. Is it possible that you're connected to this energy in exactly the same way? And when you place your awareness there, through the veil of stillness, it's possible to connect to this energy. Interesting, isn't it? And once more, bring your awareness back into the room. Open your eyes. Welcome back. I just want to share with you a little video.
I remember, before the light, before the sound, in that warm, dark place where I first became aware, where I first questioned. In the beginning there was darkness, warm, comforting darkness.
Brother, what do you think happens after rebirth?
Nothing, just the end of life.
I don't think that's true. What if it's the beginning of freedom?
You have a wild imagination. Move around indeed, ridiculous.
But what if there's more? What if we eat with our mouths, speak to others?
Don't be stupid, where's the evidence?
Don't you hear our mother in the silence? Feel her presence?
You're off your head with talk of freedom, of being with a mother.
That's how I feel. Soon, we'll discover the truth.
In that moment I felt it, a connection, a presence beyond our dark, watery world. It was as if the universe itself was whispering to me, confirming my hopes, my beliefs. And then light, sound, a new world, vast and overwhelming. But I remembered the debate, the questions, the feeling of something more. As I grew, I sought answers. I searched for that connection I first felt in the womb, and I found it. In the silence between breaths, in the space between thoughts, my journey led me through ancient practices and modern discoveries, each step bringing me closer to understanding the interconnectedness of all things. I discovered that we are more than just flesh and bone. We are energy, consciousness, spirit. This energy flows through all living things, connecting us in ways we're only beginning to understand. Throughout ages, we've been taught that spiritual healing is a gift to mankind. It gives us evidence that we are spiritual beings in human form. Among the pioneers of spiritual healing, one name stands out: Harry Edwards. His work in the 20th century opened new doors of understanding. Harry Edwards dedicated his life to demonstrating that we are mind, body and spirit. He showed us that healing is not just about the physical, but about reconnecting with our true selves.
Who am I? I'm Stuart William Morris. I own a natural health centre in Birmingham. Been in practice for about 35 years, doing lots of different therapies. Started off at the physiotherapy department, doing different complementary therapies, reflexology and aromatherapy and EFT and Psych and lots of different things. I'm a spiritual healer and I'm a trustee at Harry Edwards. And I intend to dispel the myth around spiritual healing in the hope that it becomes more acceptable. We were at a show a couple of weeks ago and we had a stand there and they were doing some taster sessions for the healing. And these three women, youngish women, come up to the stand and they said, "What's this?" And one of the healers said, "Well, it's spiritual healing." And they all went back like that. And every time I, put the word spiritual in front of healing, I get the kind of same response. So I suppose really in a way I've been on a bit of a mission to see if I can dispel the myth, break it down around spiritual healing. So instead of people doing that, they go, oh, that's all I'm looking for, just that shift. So I'm gonna tell you a little story of how I came to be a spiritual healer and my run up to that. So when I was a young kid, about 6, 7 years old, I was always, well, I had lung problems and all kinds of things. And I used to be in the same bed, well, in a single bed next to our mum and dad. But they were all keeping an eye on me, I stopped breathing and everything else. And we used to have this picture on the wall of these 3 cats. And I was about 6 or 7. I remembered that picture. I never told anybody, but it changed its form. And on the picture, a face came. And the only kind of association I could kind of put on that was like Sunday school. Our mum and dad used to kick us out to Sunday school, get rid of us for a few hours. And this face appeared on this picture and it looked like Jesus. That was my association. And I never told anybody for 50 years, 40 odd years, because I thought they're going to think I'm a nutcase. But it was one of those things that I always remembered. It was just quite profound. And I got better. I kind of went about my business, same as everybody else around our end. And most of us, we ended up as market lads and builders. We weren't, educated group of people. We just kind of ducked and dived and did our thing. And I say I worked down the markets and then life started to unfold. Mum had a stroke when I was about 14 years old and she lay in my arms and of course she was dying. The doctor came, my dad went up to bed, left us. The doctor came and said, well, we don't know what's going to happen. And I just remember her holding her and her crying. So I, couldn't talk properly. I think she didn't know she was going to get through the night. And I just loved that. I just loved the back to health, I suppose, really. Lay with her all night. And she made a full recovery. And then our dog was going to be put down. And these are all kind of things that, over the years I've formulated as a bit of a picture. The dog was going to be put down. The mum brought him home, mum and dad brought him home and said, see the dog for the last time. And again, it was just like instinctively, like just to love him. And he started to recover. And then things like that started to happen in my life. And then my brother-in-law hung himself and I loved him to bits. And I always was sorry, it sounds mad, that I wasn't old enough to speak to him. I regretted not having the capacity or the wisdom to just help him. And then I look back and I think it was those kind of incidents that shaped my life, that kind of, I wanted to step in. So nobody ever got to that stage again. My granddad was a healer. I never met him, but he used to have a corn on his hand. And he used to lay his hand on people and say to people, the pain will go into the corn. And Mum said he was a very gentle man. So I suppose part of that legacy, on some level, maybe it was destiny for me to kind of go down a similar path. And then at 26 years old, I got cancer. I got something called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So all of these kind of things, the stress in my life led me to being ill. And the irony of that was, before I got the cancer, I wanted to die because I was in a bad relationship. I had a 2-year-old daughter, she was pregnant, my ex was pregnant with my then son, my now son. And it was a terrible situation for one reasons I won't go into. I just wanted to die. And then when I was faced with this prognosis of, I think it was 5 years or something changed in me and I wanted to live. It's really, really weird how life patterns out, doesn't it? Really, couldn't really write it. So this resurgence in something for meaning and purpose was born out of my pain. Like I think most of our spirituality is born out of pain, isn't it? I think so anyway. It's born out of that experience. So here I was, very ill at the time, 26 years old. And the consultant said, you need to relax. Well, I thought, oh, that's easy for him to say. I was having panic attacks, 160 milligrams of beta blockers. They weren't touching the side. I used to shake all the time. It was like I was so anxious. It was terrible, and for good reason, really. You know, I was young. We had no money, no nothing. And Mum said, "Have you heard of yoga?" And I thought, "Well, what's yoga?" And then I read down the road. There was a yoga class, and I went down there. Don't forget, I'm a bricklayer. You know, kind of just doing my thing with all the lads and stuff. And I looked through this window, and there's all these women in there. I thought, oh, jeez, I'm gonna hide at the back of the class, which is what I did. I went in the class like, and you know, kind of a bit timid, and I hid at the back of the class with a so-called yoga mat. I didn't know what I was doing, but she said, lie down at the end. She did this relaxation. And then when I was kind of lying down, I heard this voice, and it said, learn to forgive again and again and again. I thought, what? I sat up like, was someone talking to me? Because it was like, I didn't know if the voice was inside me, around me, or I don't know where it was. But it because I wasn't stern, but it was like, not authority, but it was something that has a resonance of something different. That's the only way I can explain it. It was just the resonance of the words. So I went in search of what forgiveness is and was. And that's a whole story in itself. My son became ill. My and my wife split up because she didn't know who I was anymore. Neither did I, to be honest with you. So I went from market I'd builder to someone doing yoga in the living room. She's going, oh God, who is he? And I can understand really, because, you know, she met one man, like, you know, young man, and then I was turning into something else. My nature's never changed, but I guess my search for meaning and purpose did. So we split up. I got a little house down the road, and two kids, we meet a lot of the time, especially my son. He was there all the time. But I think the stress played a part on him, and still do to this day. You know, like when he come with me, he started to get these symptoms of losing weight and bleeding internally. And we couldn't get a diagnosis. And eventually he becomes so unwell that he was being tube fed. He was like 5 stone in weight. And he looked to me like he was dying, and to everybody else like he was dying. And I'm holding him in the kitchen one day. Oh, God, what do I do? What do I do? And I heard that love is the only true healing balm, applied where necessary to oneself and others. I thought, what am I going to do with that? What does that mean? But all these different quotes, like learn to forgive again and again, they're storylines. They're just not just quotes. They led me down a path of discovery, self-discovery, I suppose, for want of a better phrase. Another one, learn to be humble. So, you know, I didn't know what that meant, and maybe to a degree I still don't, but I guess I've kind of, my analogy of humility is the ability to make someone feel loved. So when you saw Mother Teresa, you know, head bowed down, I don't think it was so much that. I think it was like Mother Teresa holding a baby, you know, making that baby feel totally loved. So I have, like, when these quotes were coming, they were from the same source. They had the same resonance, and they stayed with me. I couldn't remember what I was doing yesterday, but I remember some of these quotes from 50, 40 odd years ago. Isn't that amazing? Like, just when something's said and you hear truth slightly different. So all of these things were beginning to, I suppose, shape who I am. And then this one, Stuart has great conviction, the power to emulate a great saint. I'm not saying it's just me, I think it's all of us. I didn't even know what the word emulate meant. You know, I really didn't, like, you know, so all these things were happening. Life moves on, I suppose, really one way or another. And, you know, I was on my own for a while with the kids, and I set up my own practice in Birmingham, like a place called Birmingham Holistic. Started to develop that practice more and more. And I was okay just doing my own thing, I suppose, really, in my own quiet way, under the radar. I didn't want to, you know, I love people. And I just wanted to help as many people as I possibly could with the skills that I had, I suppose, really. And then I met my now wife, who's a medium. And I used to go to the spiritualist churches or different churches, and it really wouldn't bother me if I was in a park or a church you know, or anything else. I just wanted to be close to God in my own kind of way. So I met her and she's a medium. I thought, oh, jeez, I'll keep away from all that kind of stuff. But anyway, one particular night, you know, we got together and eventually we got married. And one particular night she said, do you want to come with me to one of the churches? So I thought, well, I'll go, you know, and sit at the back of the class, which is what I did. So I'm in there in this church, and after the church, she's talking to everybody she knows, and I'm sitting there like Billy No Mates at the back. And this lady come over to me and she said, have you heard of a man called Harry Edwards? I said, I've heard of him. I said, but I don't know anything about him. She said, well, he was one of the greatest healers in the 1950s and the 1960s, a great man. She said, me and Don, who was in his 80s, the pair of them were in their 80s, we run this church. She said, and he gave me 2 books, and he signed both of those books, and he gave me 20 odd years, 25 years ago. And she said, I want to give you one of the books. I said, why do you want to give me one of the books? You've only just met me a second ago. She said, you have the same energy as him. Well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Kind of just, you know, like just certain people say certain things. It's just like, what? It had that same kind of resonance of something, you know. And so she gave me one of the books, this one, called The Healing Intelligence, in which Harry was signed. So I couldn't kind of let that go. You know, I wanted to follow it up on the night. It was playing on my mind. Who's Harry Edwards? You know, what's he about? I just want to introduce you. I'm going to come back to this story in a minute, who Harry Edwards was. So that's Harry Edwards. It doesn't look like me, but apparently he's got the same energy. We're all going to say that. So born in 1893, 9 children. His dad was a printer, age 14, an apprenticeship in the same trade. Once he completed, he was enlisted in the First World War in 1915 and in Bombay, where he worked to build a railway link and ended up in the role of captain. The interesting thing of that was, he had this way about him, this kind of nice way. You know, when some people like just got a nice way about them, you know, and he had this nice way about him. And they didn't have much medication at the time. This is what I've been told. And people, the natives, would always go to him. And when he would give them the medication, you know, you could call it placebo or whatever, tissue salts or whatever it is, but they would always kind of get better. And so he built this reputation up as a man who could be trusted, first and foremost, and one that all the native people and, you know, other members of the army would go to when they were sick. So something started to stir in Harry Edwards very early on. And I kind of, you mentioned compassion earlier on about, and I think this is probably where Harry Edwards' compassion was born. Compassion's built out of, you know, adversity most of the time. I see compassion as a deep understanding of human nature, and you can only get that through experience, or so I believe anyway. So he came out of the army, set up as a printer, and Harry had a Church of England background, and one particular night he was drawn to a spiritualist church. Now in that spiritualist church, a bit like me sitting at the back of the class, somebody said something to him that must have had the same resonance as when Pam spoke to me. And this particular woman said, you know, you're a great healer. Me? You're a great healer and you're going to go on to do great things. It wasn't just one medium that told him, it was several mediums. So he become a regular at the church and started to do some hands-on healing with people. And that same thread of him when he was in the army, you know, giving the natives and people different tissue salts or whatever he was doing, when he lays hands on people, they would feel better. They would generally get better. So he had this way about him. So that continued. He used to do he went from the church to the house, and people would start to see him. And there's something about the attraction of that. Apparently there were big queues outside his street, down his road, of people saying, Harry Edwards has this extraordinary gift. And he did. You know, he had this extraordinary gift of being to help people of a whole range of conditions. So he outgrew his home, I suppose, really. And they went in search of another place. So him and his sister purchased a place called Burroughsley. I'm going to show you a picture of that. So that's Burroughsley, a big, beautiful house in Shire, in Surrey. So there's a story even behind how they got the house. Him and his sister and her husband were in a taxi, and the taxi driver knew the area, and the estate agents would give them 2 houses to look at. And by some really weird kind of phenomenon, the taxi driver, who knew the area really well, forgot where the other house was. So they ended up by default or divine in Burroughsley, and Harry knew that this was the place. So he borrowed money off his sister, his mum, his aunt, the milkman, everybody, to kind of purchase Burroughsley, and started to develop this healing practice. He was passionate about healing, a very, very humble, very kind, very compassionate man who was tuning in and blending in with a different type of energy. I say, given 1,000 names, the divinity, God, and so forth. So he, at his height of his fame, he was seeing like 6,000 people, and even the Right Albert Hall, people came, you know, to see him for healing. And interesting, isn't it? He claimed that there were several deceased scientists working through him, Lord Lister and Louis Pasteur. Thousands of ordinary people received healing from Harry Edwards. As many as celebrities, King George was complimentary of his healing powers. Harry Edwards died in 1976, age 83. He left the Healing Sanctuary, which he founded and established as a registered charity, and the sanctuary carries on his legacy in giving healing to thousands of people. He was a remarkable, kind man of generous spirit who had this gift. So, coming back to that kind of story of the book that Pam gave me, I said to you, like, you know, there was a resonance of the words that I heard over 30, 40 years, whatever it was. Only five times I heard that until 2017. So I couldn't let it go. You know, this kind of Harry Edwards, she gave me the book. She only just met me in 3 seconds and said what she said. I have to go and investigate. I have to go and find out a bit more about it. So I'm in Birmingham. Here's she, and I did all the training. I didn't want to do any more training. I'd had enough of it years ago. But I'm driving down to Surrey, and going past London, I'm having a rant in the car. Anyone who's seen me must have thought he's a nutcase. I'm saying, why would you want to put a place like this in the middle of nowhere? Why couldn't you stick it in Birmingham? You know, why did you have to put it in Surrey? So I'm having this rant because I didn't like driving that far. And I got down to Harry Edwards Sanctuary. And there's an open day there with a view of maybe doing a 2-year course on spiritual healing. But I needed a sign. I needed a thunderbolt. I needed angels. I needed something really, really profound. Otherwise, I wasn't going to do it. So I've got down there and I'm looking at all the stalls and talking to people, and it just wasn't doing it for me. It didn't resonate with me. So I thought, that's it. I'm all right. I'm not going to do the course. I found out now it's just one of them. I'll go home, drive back. So on the way out, I said to the receptionist, I had a chance to become a healer, trained to do the healing 2-year course with Harry Edwards. She said, down the bottom, she said, is a place called Cherry Tree Walk. Why don't you walk down there? That's where Harry Edwards used to walk every single morning before he began his healing. So I thought, I'll go down there on my way out. So I walked down Cherry Tree Walk, and I look at this And I sit down and close my eyes. And I hear a voice again. And it said, "You asked a stupid question." And you see, the thing was, it wasn't a thunderbolt. It wasn't angels. But I remember I was having this rant. Why do you want to put a place like this in the middle of nowhere? And I got a direct answer. You asked the stupid question. And I opened my eyes and I saw the view and I smiled. Why wouldn't you put this, this place here? Beautiful view, great resonance. I closed my eyes again and I heard this. I'm not the divinity, but I'm a voice connected to the divinity. I'm the one who can open up your mind to the presence of God. What? Wow. And I recognized it as the same resonance as the 5 times I'd hear, learn to be humble, learn to forgive again and again. Love is the only true healing balm, apply where necessary to oneself and others. They're very, very Christian-based sayings. I think so anyway. So that's what happened. That kind of made my mind up, and I came back and said to my wife, this is what happened. I heard this voice that said, you asked a stupid question, and then this. And she said, you have to do the course. I said, I know. So I committed the next 2 years to going down to Harry Edwards to learn about Harry Edwards, to learn about spiritual healing. So I'm there on the first day. And the classroom wasn't what it was the only picture I could find. So I'm in this classroom, a bit like you guys around these tables. And I'm sitting there and I've got a notepad in hand. And everyone's kind of introducing themselves. And I'm ready to kind of do the same. It's about 20 people in the class. And there was a picture on the wall of Harry Edwards. And I look at the picture and I close my eyes and I ask a question. What's spiritual healing? What's spiritual healing? And I heard that same voice which said, take the idea of energy existing first and foremost, and from the concept of energy as light, you're able to bring light forward to someone whose light's become dim. And then the dialogue continues, and I'm writing it down. I'm writing all this kind of stuff. They never said anything to anyone. I'm just writing it down as it comes through. That dialogue, the one I heard 5, 6 times over 40 years, never stopped. It just continued. I didn't read a single book, Harry Edwards, not one. We were going through the course and we were supposed to read some books, but I never read any of them because I was getting this information. And that information eventually, in 2000, I think it was 18 or something, like that, become a book. And if I'm honest with you, and I am, is that I was writing all these kind of things down and it became a book. And I'm not sure if it was from my own ego, like I'll make a book of this because it's really interesting. And it is, it's really fascinating. Some of the quotes are amazing. But really on reflection, I know the lessons were for me to help me kind of grow in my own way. I want to read you some of the quotes from that book. So you can imagine every time I went there, I've got my notepad and I would close my eyes and I would ask a question and then I would get an answer. And I've just taken a few quotes because I just think some of the quotes, they're really beautiful. So I was worrying about something, which is the pattern of probably most of our lives. And Harry, I call him Harry, but not once has he ever said I'm Harry. He introduced himself as, I'm a divinity. I'm the one who can open up your mind to the presence of God. I call him Harry because of reasons associated with Harry Edwards, and because it personalizes it, makes it more of a friend for me. So he said, I heard this voice, when you really understand that everything has a divine purpose, and once you place your trust in that divine purpose, only then can you make peace with life. What an amazing quote. And you see, like, they're simple quotes, but they're profound. They're profound. You could go away and perhaps think about some of the, well, for me, they're profound. You know, the unseen will take care of the unknown. So again, I'm on a thread of worry, you know, and I'm worrying about, and then, you know, I hear that. So all the time I would be writing these things down in this book. To imagine is to see, but to be still is to call upon the divinity. When you're in that company, you're aligned to peace, the greatest ambassador for change in oneself and others. Isn't that an amazing quote? You see, like, some of the words as they kind of unfolded, I didn't even know what they meant. I couldn't even spell them. My wife got English literature degrees, and I said to him, what's this mean? Oh, I don't even understand that. So there was a clear comparison from what I was hearing to, I suppose, my education, my kind of background. There was something else coming through on some level. And the most important part of that was the patience. Because I heard a saying like, you know, God works through extremely flawed material. Well, I thought, well, I'm your man. So like the voice that always come back was the one of patience. So I'd be having a rant at this, that, and the other. And this voice would just be very gentle in its delivery and its nature. The journey was always about the awareness of the light, and that's a spiritual journey. And you see, like every kind of philosophy, this is open to your interpretation, my interpretation. My view is my view, yours is yours. And that's how it should be. I've never, ever seen one way, and not in my life. You know, I think there's a way, but I've never seen one way. And how do you define healing? You know, if I'm hungry and someone gives me a sandwich, or if I'm broke and someone gives me a tenner, or if I need a bit of love and someone says, Stuart, it's going to be all right. How can you really define healing? You can't. The one common denominator is what we'll come to in a bit later, is perhaps love. You're so busy looking for an answer, and yet nature gives you an answer, just be. And that's true as well, isn't it? I remember like sitting outside one day, and Harry said, look at those clouds. They don't need to know where they're going. They're just drifting. You're part of nature. Sometimes all you need to do is just be. And how many times do we do that? Just to be still. And I love that analogy of stillness being a veil through which these energies, you know, can come through. What a beautiful metaphor. Your role is to present light to a soul whose lights become dim. And the healing comes from the illumination within everyone. Interesting. So like when you see someone and they're not very well, I don't know why I'm holding on to this book. I do actually. When you see someone who's kind of, you know, a bit fed up, what do they normally say? I feel a bit low today. It makes sense, doesn't it, really? It has a simpleness, but a profound statement of truth. In the stillness lies a connection to spirit, wisdom, insight, and healing. Allow nature to teach you how to live without the worry of mind created through time and expectation. I remember Harry saying to me, like, you know, because I was really one time, not one time, 100 times, but this one time in particular, angry with someone. And I heard Harry say, like, who would you be without expectation of how they should be? Who would you be without expectation of how it should be? Well, the truth is I'd be free, and so would you. If we didn't have that expectation, a certain kind of ideology of how life should be. I mean, who in this room could write life? You couldn't, could you? All the twists and turns in your life, you never planned any of this. Not really. If you spent as much time as if you spent as much time being as you do doing, you would be directly connected to the divinity itself. Simply be. This will remove stress and bring you peace. So, I wrote the book. The book became a course. I'm doing some things for Harry Edwards at this stage, doing some things at Harry Edwards every 2 weeks, like a meditation online. During lockdown, you know, they kind of had this thing where they would do these meditations. So I've got the course and I've got the book, and then I start to question myself. Was that in my imagination? Those things that I heard, did I just make them up? Was that just something I made up in my imagination? I really didn't know. And then one night, everything changed. And this was probably around 2018. So I'm going to read a quote from the book, and it's only a line or two. In the book, this is what I heard. And bear in mind, I never read a single book of Harry Edwards, not one, not even the one Pam gave me. Why? Because this information was coming through and I didn't want to cloud it. So I read this. I wrote this. With the healing of the incurable, an intelligence superior to human wisdom enters into the picture who knows the way to human wisdom. And then the dialogue continued. So a year or two in, and I'm doing these meditations for Harry Edwards. And I remember going on eBay and looking for something that I could bring to the meditation group. And someone was selling a recording of Harry Edwards taped maybe 65 years ago. And they put it onto a CD. And I thought, well, I'll get that. I'll have a listen to that and maybe I can share it with the group. And so I put it in, got it at work. And about 9 o'clock at night, I'm driving home. And I thought, I'll have a listen to that CD. And I put the CD on of Harry talking 65 years ago. And this is what he said. I'm going to get my Bluetooth on again. In fact, I don't need to. You can hear it, I think.
Pop it next to the speakers.
Okay.
Microphone.
The man intelligently directed with the healing of the incurable, an intelligence superior to human wisdom enters into the picture, who knows the way and the means whereby to remove the cause of the disease and its symptoms.
What did I write in the book? More or less word for word, something that he said 65 years ago. And so I was driving, I hear that, and I thought, I pulled over to the side of the road because I know genuinely and on heart, I had no possible access to that information except out of the ether. I knew that in that moment, it changed everything for me. And that's when I started to, I suppose, really, I don't know what the word is, have more faith. And it's still an ongoing process, but I know I had no possible access to that information. Interesting, isn't it? So, what's spiritual healing? I'm going to read you something. We're going to look at what spiritual healing is a bit more now. Spiritual healing at its core is the art of remembering. It's about reconnecting with our innate wisdom, the healing intelligence, which is the one I spoke about inside of us, all those different systems, the immune system and so forth, and the supreme intelligence, which we can call God, in bringing about wholeness so often obscured by life's challenges. The process of remembering is deeply entwined with education and experience. Education provides us with the knowledge and the tools to understand the principles of spiritual healing, whether it's learning about the different modalities, energy systems, or interconnectedness of the mind, body, and spirit. It gives us a framework for comprehension. However, true understanding and transformation comes through experience. It's in the application of what we learn, practice, and directly encounter with the healing processes that we truly integrate this knowledge. Each of our journeys are personal. It becomes an example of how remembering our spiritual essences and connection can lead us to profound shifts, and we become the change we wish to see in the world, which is what Harry said, which I know is a quote from Gandhi, but he said, become the change that you want to see in the world. Ultimately, the combination of education and experience is empowering. It enables individuals to take an active role in their own well-being, fostering a deep connection to themselves, supreme intelligence. Through remembering, we unlock our inherent capacity for healing and growth. So, when we think of someone who's spiritual, and I'm going to ask a bit of feedback for you guys like now, what qualities do you think? Remember that kind of analogy of those three girls come up to the counter thing and saying, what's the spiritual healing? They all went back. So I thought, how can I kind of break it down so it's digestible to them? So this is what I would say to them, is what I'm asking you. So when you think of the word spiritual, what qualities, when you think of a person who's spiritual, what qualities do you think of? What qualities would they have?
Present.
Pardon?
Present.
Present?
Present
Yeah, what does that mean?
means that you are truly here.
Yeah,
You're not pretending.
yeah.
You're not.
Fantastic. So authentic.
Yeah.
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 Anyone else? When you think of someone in your own kind of past, or the people that you've met or read about, when you consider someone spiritual?
A good listener.
Good listener. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Anyone else? Caring? Yeah. Anyone?
Openness.
Openness. Yeah. So what you've mentioned, if you kind of want to write them down on a bit of paper, your first thought that comes to you when you think about spiritual. So I consider, like, people who are kind of spiritual, compassionate people, maybe kind, caring, insightful, loving, humble, empathic, sense of purpose, sense of meaning to their life. Would you agree that these qualities, the word spiritual, when you think, they're human qualities, aren't they? They're human qualities. So if we take that next part of it, when you think of the word healing, again, what would you consider some of the ingredients required in that word? So we've got the word spiritual, loving, compassion, healing. What's the one common denominator, do you think?
Yeah, how about to give well-being?
Yeah, to give. So it's about giving, isn't it? Anybody else? What human qualities do you think are necessary? So when you see like a child fell over, what does the mother do? Ah, get away, get away. No, most of the time, what do? So perhaps like healing really is an act of touch, human love. What else do you think are the ingredients that make up healing? What do you think?
Love. Relief.
Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. So removal of past trauma. So how in a word then? So you're a psychologist, so you'd need a catalyst, maybe. So a catalyst for change. Maybe I've kind of overthought that a little bit. What would you think it would be? That's fair enough.
Restoration.
Free?
Freeing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Free from pain, free from past, free from trauma. So as a release. And isn't that the art of forgiveness? Really? You know, nature teaches us from our first breath, we're light, and our last breath is the act of forgiveness. On our last breath, what we're doing? We're releasing. That's forgiveness. Anybody else? Pardon? Wholeness. Yeah, great. So really, spiritual is a human quality, and healing is a human quality, isn't it? All the things that we've mentioned, they come from the human psyche, I suppose. So kind of these are some of the things that I thought of. Again, love. I think that's probably the one common denominator in all acts of healing, whether it's giving, you know, somebody on the street £5 because they've got no money, or feeding someone, you know, who's got no money. The space from which it comes from is what? Love. Has to be. Kindness, comforting, reassurance, peace. So, at its beginning, and this is my kind of analogy really, and what I've observed is that spiritual healing begins with human love. The irony of spiritual healing is that it is about becoming more human, more compassionate. It's the art of remembering. What do we mean? Remembering what you are. So, do you watch that program years ago called How?
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a bit of how table here. So I think we're kind of born into this world as light on some level. You see a newborn baby, what do you really see? You see pure, don't you? You see light. And then what happens is you're told you're this. And then you go through life and someone else tells you this. And then you get in your teenage years and you have relationships and they tell you you're crap before they leave you. Or you're abused as a child, or different traumas, different experiences. Someone makes you feel that. What happens to the light? Yeah. Dims, doesn't it? So there's a disconnect, you know, because of our life experiences, the traumatic experiences, we become disconnected. But the truth is this. And what we attempt to do in spiritual healing or therapeutic intervention or EFT or EMDR, or we're going to remove these blocks one by one. You know, EMDR, you mentioned you're moving that. What? EFT, you're moving that. Counseling. Until you remember. Isn't that amazing? So I consider the spiritual healing in part the art of remembering who we are, what we are, what you're connected to, which we're going to come to in a minute, and then what you're capable of. So would you consider yourself as the mind, the thoughts that pass through the mind? Not really. You know, you're not the thoughts, so you can't possibly be the thoughts. So are you the body? Well, you're obviously part of you, but that's not who you are. Are you spirit? Well, I think so. I think it's probably the one constant in life that we can anchor to is the spirit that we can tap into, that we can connect to the source from which we came from. What are you connected to? Our ancestors, what did they do thousands of years ago? They roamed the land barefoot And they felt the resonance of the earth, the Schumann resonance, the magnetic field. They felt a resonance in the earth. And at certain points, they would build shrines, temples, places of healing, pyramids. In fact, every culture across the world did something similar, haven't they? Is there a culture across the world where you haven't got a shrine? No. Why? Because our ancestors were connected to the earth itself. That's what they did. And we've lost that disconnect. We've become disconnected from our true nature and from nature itself, from each other. Why? Social media. That's all it does. It's just noise. And the attention's over here because you haven't got a chance to think. Look, that's true, isn't it? The news, the social media. How can you think? Society's in such a way, consumerism and everything else, is that we're so busy focused over there. And we've lost this connection to the earth, to nature, to our true selves. Energy. We're connected to energy. This is a picture of my wife, and she was doing an album some years ago. And she said, can you take this video of me? I was in a place called Sarah Mill, where Tolkien did his writings. And so I'm there with my phone, and I'm just about to record her. And this white light comes around me and passes over her. And I said, did you see that? She said, I didn't see anything. I said, I just seen a white light come round my leg and down and past you. And we slowed the film down. And that's it. What's that? What's that? It just fascinates me. Same thing. I don't know what it is. We do this experiment. So I'm trying to attempt, when I'm kind of teaching the course, that to show everybody that we're connected to energy. So I took an orange and I put, like you can see, a light bulb and 2 wires in there. And I light the light bulb from the orange. Why? Because it has energy. I can light a light bulb from an orange. Is that mad? So, hey, look, and we can do from any living thing, a tree, a plant, an apple, a pear. You can't do it from Pizza Hut. So I took my grandson, you can't. I took my grandson into the centre where I work, and I said, watch this. And I showed him. And he said, Granddad, that's amazing. I said, what does that teach you? He said, it teaches me that when I eat that food, that energy is going into me. What better way to teach kids than through experience? And it's the same with all things in life. Most people learn through experience. So we are connected to energy from the earth, like our ancestors, which has a healing effect on the body. There's something called heart math, and heart math believe that there's a magnetic field in the heart that resonates 60 times more powerful than the brain itself. And it's the same resonance as the earth magnetic field. I just find it really interesting. Remember what Harry said to me? Take the idea of energy existing first and foremost, and from the concept of energy as light, you can bring forward the light to someone whose lights become dim. Okay, I get that. I can understand the concept of that. Birds. I mean, we're so kind of ignorant, aren't we, really? You see birds flying and what they're guided by the magnetic field. And they have a language that's completely different to our own. Same as everything in nature. I mean, like worms, they talk to each other. Trees. And I read something years ago, like there's a tree in Africa, and the giraffes are coming to feed on this leaf half a mile away. And that tree emits some kind of scent or some kind of resonance to the tree half a mile away to say, produce something that giraffes don't like. What? So trees, trees and plants, they all contain an energy. We can light a light bulb from nature. That's just mad. But is it? Have we just lost that understanding? Another thing we do is that I did this when my kids were about 8 or 9. And somebody said, Stuart, get 2 jars of rice and put the words of hate on one, words of love on another. And I said, what will happen? He said, just do it. So the kids have come back from school and I'm writing swear words on the one jar and words of love on the other. It's probably helped. This is probably one of the reasons I got divorced. My wife's going, what are you doing? And I said, well, I've been told to write words of love on one jar, words on hate on another. Which one do you think is which? These are 10 years old, by the way, these ones. And not only that, I can repeat this exercise and 85% of the time get the same result. 15%, I don't know why, it just didn't happen, but 85% of the time I can do that. There's a man called Matu Emoto who does something with ice crystals and water. And what's the body if not 70% water? So water could be the messenger for what? Your own internal dialogue, your own thoughts. So watch your thoughts carefully because they have a biological effect, for sure. Don't you think that's interesting? Words have energy just on the jars. They can create that. I just think it's mind-blowing. What are we connected to? Well, we've already said we're connected to the earth. We pick up the resonance of the earth. We're connected to nature. Perhaps we've become a little bit disconnected. And more people are disconnected, the more sicker they're going to become, for sure. This is from the how table. So I remember talking to my wife and she was trying to tell me what a medium is. And she said a medium is just a conduit through which the energy flows. Because again, it's a bit like spiritual healing. The word medium's misunderstood. Most people think it's a platform, but it's not. That's just kind of sales. So this is an electrical device. And what this shows is that I'm a conduit through which energy flows. Isn't that mad? The interesting thing is if you guys stand up a sec, and you don't have to stand up, just this table. And if you just hold the hand of the person next to you, and then hold that, and then one by one let your hand go. Let go of the hand, no, keep the hand, let go, and then hold again. Then let go. Let go. Next one. Next one. There you go. Next one. Next one. What's that telling you? And I know it's just a child's toy, but it shows you that we're connected to each other.
We're all connected.
We're all connected. We're all the same, beyond gender, beyond race, beyond your job role, beyond your education. Guess what? We all come from the same source. We all return to the same source. And we're connected to each other in ways that we can demonstrate. I mean, if you don't think the energy exists, when your partner is in a bad mood and they walk in the door, what do you feel? Energy. Maybe that's just our house. When my wife walks into the room in a good mood, what do I feel first? Energy. You see, we're designed as human beings to pick up energy, not just body language, not just most of the language we say is unspoken. There's a conversation going on a level that we can't quite comprehend. So this radio, I can tune into any radio station 1,000 miles away, Australia, just the click of a button. Why? Because this radio is designed to pick up frequency. Can you see that frequency? BBC? No. Can you see any of these energies? No, it's the unseen. If I went back 1,000 years and I went to a group of people and said, I can pick up a radio station in Australia 1,000 miles away, they'd say, lock him up. Wouldn't they? But if I went back 1,000 years ago and said, I can connect to our ancestors and I can connect to the divinity and you from 100 miles away, they would agree. You see, we've lost, our perception. And I guess it's been diluted. And some of you guys mentioned yesterday about taking out the scriptures and so forth. I don't know a lot about that. All I know is that information has been lost, for sure. So doesn't it make sense that we're connected to each other, which we just demonstrated. We're able to connect to energy, which we've demonstrated. We're able to connect to each other, which we've just shown you. This is a picture. This was a girl who had terminal brain cancer, and she come to one of our courses. I must have took 40 photos of the students that day, and I took this one of her. What's that? The only photo, not all the photos like this, the only photo that was different was her one with the brain tumor. She's well, she got paid out on her life insurance, which is amazing, but she's alive and she's well and she's working, touch wood, of which I've seen many people do that over the years. People have been paid out on their life insurance is still alive. Interesting. I mean, I don't pretend to know. I just think, like, let's open up the mind to inquiry. What's possible? So there's that kind of the magnetic field that heart maths speak about, the resonance that is in the heart. And I believe that most great healers have come from that space of heart rate variability, that kind of coherence. And the interesting thing is, when you're in coherence, if you touch someone, you put them into coherence, a bit like what I've just showed you. So if I'm in coherence and I touch you, your body goes into coherence. That's mad, isn't it? So, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So, my wife, she was ill for the last few years, and I used to go from work to the hospital, and nobody kind of knew, I only wanted to. I was knackered, 9 months of going to and fro. And there was a time when she was, several times, but one particular night when she was right in the eye of a storm. And I used to go to this little chapel, and I'd be sitting there. It was damp, it was dark, it was always open. I'd be sitting there. Oh, Harry, show me I'm not alone. Show me you're with me. Show me you're with me. Show me I'm not alone. I needed some comfort, something to show me I wasn't on my own. And I heard that there was a show at the NEC, and there was this amazing healer who'd done it all, and I thought I'd go and have a look. And I went there, and I've heard it all before. There was a lady selling this stuff and selling. I just thought, I can't be doing any of that. So it's like seeing a nice book cover, and then beyond the cover of the page, there's nothing there, it's crap. It was a bit like that for me, well, of which there are many. So I've gone from her, and I'm walking around the NEC, with my head down, like, oh, what out there? And I look, there's this lady here. God wants you to know he's with you. Pardon me? God wants you to know he's with you. She said, I don't do this work very often. She said, I'm in my 80s. She said, but I've come to tell you that. God wants you to know he's with you. And remember, 2 nights before, I'm weeping, like alone, thinking, show me I'm not alone. And your lives have been peppered with coincidences, synchronicities. And Einstein said that, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. And the interesting thing in all of that was, like, I asked Harry, why has this happened to my wife? Why? And he said, look what come out of your adversity. Well, the truth is, out of my adversity come a career, shaped the man I was going to be, still to become. That's true. It's not the answer I wanted. What I wanted was, she's going to be fine. But that never happened. I realized, and not just then, but most of my life, that sometimes the healing is not physical. Sometimes people don't recover. That's true. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I have to look for the reason, and I'm going to try and find reason, meaning, and purpose in all of that. And everyone I've ever met who's got something about them, they've come from adversity. They're less judgmental. They're kind of more open to what we're talking about today. Why? Because that's what pain does. Pain breaks us open like a seed, doesn't it? It does, opens us up. So I realized in that moment, like, healing is not always physical. And I remember treating a young woman years ago, and her son, I was doing some healing with her, hadn't seen his daughter for a year or so. And she said she was obviously distressed because she hadn't seen a granddaughter and her son hadn't seen the baby. So we did the healing session and she got a phone call straight after. Got to take this, Stuart. No problem, take it. Mum, what? She's let me see the baby. Another one of them. Isn't that interesting? And I can't categorically say it was that, but it happened that before in that year. And it happened within 10 seconds of us finishing the session. So sometimes the healing comes through prayer, through our intention, to someone fit like this 10,000 miles away, just from thought. Why? Guess what? We're all connected. Einstein said this: the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious, the knowledge of something unfathomable to us. The manifestation of the most profound reason coupled with the most brilliant beauty. So, spiritual healing. The art of remembering what you are, what you're connected to, and what you're capable of. And it is really about becoming more human. That's how I see it. The more human we are, the better for all of us. Surely that's the case. It's there to prove to us that we're each connected, which we've kind of showed you, and that we're connected to the divinity itself through these coincidences and the million other ways that God presents information to us. We're far more powerful than we've been led to believe. I believe that as well, kind of very early on in kids in schools and so forth, you're taken straight from your parents into a system that does this. And if you're lucky, pain does this, doesn't it? So spiritual healing is a way of being. So it's not just 30 minutes on a couch. It's about me trying to become a better man and you trying to become a better woman, or, that's, I think it's about us becoming more human. That's the irony of it. So if I could explain to those three girls and went like this, let me tell you, spiritual healing is about becoming more human. That's in its simple form. That's what it is. And we can tap into energy beyond what we see, like we've just shown you. And then we can pass that energy on to someone from simple touch, a word, something like that, that makes them feel better. And that feeling better has an effect on the immune system. Emotional relief will have a physical, biological, consequence, for sure. Probably my favorite quote of the whole thing that Harry ever gave me, not the easiest one. When you really understand that everything has a divine purpose and you place your trust in that divine purpose, only then can you make peace with life. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Stuart, thank you so much for that excellent talk. Do apologise for the AV issues that we had in there, but thank you for being part of this. We have a few moments for a few quick questions before we move on to lunch. I'm not quite sure what the queue situation is out there. I'll have a quick look to see what I can find out. But is anybody any comments that people would like to make or anything they'd like to ask Stuart? Neil?
You mentioned quite a few times about meaning and purpose. Well, when I was younger and had some brains, I studied theology, and I was told that was about value, meaning and purpose. I think you're a theologian.
I said to my wife the other day, all very educated people and all theologians. I didn't even know what the word meant, but you know, I said they're all very educated people. But you know, it's a simple message, isn't it? Really, love each other as best we can. Thank you.